Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dominance, the flagship of the Galactic Empire's Third Fleet. His four eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display, showing the unusual energy readings coming from the small blue planet. The Empire had ruled over thousands of alien species for more than 10,000 years. In all that time, they had never seen energy patterns like these. "Tell me again how long these humans have had faster-than-light travel," Thorne asked, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the display. Commander Plex, the fleet's intelligence officer, checked his datapad. "Less than 50 years, Admiral. They were confined to their solar system until then." Thorne's secondary arms twitched in disbelief. "Impossible. No species develops this quickly." The Imperial Dominance and its escort of 5 battlecruisers had been sent to investigate this backwater system after automated sensor buoys detected unusual energy signatures. The Empire had known about humans for centuries, but had classified them as a pre-spaceflight civilization, not worth the effort of formal contact or conquest. That assessment was clearly wrong. "We're receiving a transmission from the approaching vessel," announced the communications officer. "On screen," ordered Thorne. The main display changed to show a human male with short gray hair and a weathered face. He wore a simple dark blue uniform with small silver markings on the collar. "This is Captain Thomas James of the Earth ship Defiance. We welcome the Galactic Empire to Earth space and request your peaceful intentions be confirmed." Thorne noted the polite words were undermined by the fact that this single human vessel had approached his fleet without hesitation. Either these humans were foolish or very confident. "I am Admiral Thorne of the Imperial Third Fleet. We are here on a routine survey mission." The lie came easily. "Your world has shown interesting technological development. We wish to establish formal contact." Captain James smiled slightly. "We're happy to escort you to our orbital diplomatic station. However, I must ask that only 2 of your vessels proceed. Our defense protocols limit the number of foreign military ships permitted near Earth." The sheer audacity. Thorne's inner eyelids blinked rapidly in surprise. This human was dictating terms to an Imperial admiral. Before he could respond with the appropriate threat, his science officer interrupted. "Admiral, you need to see these scans of the human vessel," she whispered urgently. Thorne glanced down at the offered datapad and felt a cold sensation spread through his body. The scan showed energy readings that exceeded the capabilities of his own flagship. Impossible. "Very well, Captain James," Thorne replied, masking his concern. "The Imperial Dominance and 1 escort will follow you. The remainder of my fleet will hold position here." The human nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. Please maintain your current speed and follow our navigation beacon." As the transmission ended, Thorne turned to his officers. "Full analysis of that ship. I want to know everything about their weapons, shields, and propulsion systems." Commander Plex approached. "Sir, preliminary scans indicate their shield technology is like nothing in our database, and their power generation." He hesitated. "It exceeds our flagship by approximately 300%. "That cannot be correct," Thorne hissed. "No newly spacefaring race develops such technology so quickly. They must have stolen it or found ancient technology." "There's no evidence of that, sir. The design architecture appears uniquely human." As they followed the Defiance toward Earth, Thorne studied the human vessel. It was smaller than his flagship, but had an elegant, streamlined design that suggested both speed and power. No excessive ornamentation or intimidating features like Imperial ships often displayed. Its simplicity was almost mocking. In the command center beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, General Diana West watched a holographic display showing the approaching alien fleet. Only the Defiance and a squadron of escort ships were visible to the aliens, while Earth's true defense fleet remained hidden, weapons locked on the Imperial vessels. "Captain James reports the aliens took the bait," her aide reported. "They're following with just 2 ships." Diana nodded. "And their scans. Their technology can detect the Defiance's capabilities, but not our stealth fleet. They seem concerned. Good, Diana said. 50 years ago, we intercepted their probe and learned about the Empire. We've been preparing ever since. When humans discovered the small Imperial drone cataloging their system, they'd kept it intact enough to extract its data. What they found had changed human history forever. Knowledge of a vast, ancient empire that considered all other species merely resources to exploit or subjects to rule. Humanity had united and advanced with a single purpose: to be ready when the empire eventually came. Every scientific breakthrough, every technological innovation was directed toward survival. Captain James watched the massive Imperial ships following his vessel. The Defiance was humanity's newest warship, but far from their most powerful. It had been specifically designed to impress and intimidate without revealing the full extent of human military technology. "They're scanning us continuously," Captain reported his tactical officer. "Should we raise our countermeasures?" "No," James replied. "Let them see exactly what we want them to see." The Defiance led the Imperial ships to the massive orbital station that served as Earth's diplomatic hub. The station's size and obvious technological sophistication clearly surprised the Imperial officers when they came aboard. In the main conference room, Admiral Thorne and his delegation sat across from Captain James and Earth's diplomatic team. The room featured a large viewport showing Earth below, a deliberate reminder of what humanity was protecting. "Your ship has interesting capabilities," Thorne began. "The Empire maintains technological standards for all spacefaring species. It appears humans may have developed beyond permitted levels." James raised an eyebrow. "Permitted? By whom?" "The Galactic Empire has ruled for 10,000 years, Thorne said coldly. "We ensure stability by regulating dangerous technologies. Your shields and power systems exceed Category 3 limitations, which is unusual for a species that has only recently achieved faster-than-light travel." James smiled. "We're quick learners, Admiral." "Perhaps too quick," Thorne replied. "Imperial protocol requires technological verification of all member species. Your ships and facilities must be inspected to ensure compliance. Earth is not a member of your empire," James pointed out. "We're an independent world." Thorne's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, the Imperial equivalent of a condescending smile. "There are no truly independent worlds, Captain. Only those within the Empire and those who have not yet joined. For your people's safety, compliance is recommended." As the thinly veiled threat hung in the air, James received a subtle notification on his communication device. Earth's hidden defense fleet had detected additional Imperial ships entering the system. "We'll take your request under advisement," James said carefully. "Earth's United Defense Command will need to discuss this matter." The meeting ended with false pleasantries, and as the Imperial delegation returned to their ships, James contacted General West. "They're assessing whether to bring us into the fold or eliminate a potential threat," he reported. "And their decision?" asked Diana. James watched the Imperial ships through the viewport. "I believe they're already gathering their forces. They won't risk leaving humans independent, not with the technology they think we have." "Then it's begun," Diana said quietly. "And they don't even realize they've only seen a fraction of what we can do." James nodded grimly. "The real question now is, do we show them everything and risk full-scale war, or keep our true capabilities hidden and hope for peaceful integration?" As the Imperial ships moved away from the station, Earth's leadership prepared for the decision that would determine humanity's future among the stars. "The Empire is reassessing their approach," he announced. "Our intelligence networks report widespread concern among their leadership. They've never encountered a species that could resist their military might." General Diana West stepped forward. "But we should expect a stronger response. The Empire has ruled for millennia by maintaining their technological superiority. They won't accept a challenge to that position." "What are our options?" asked the President. Diana activated a holographic display showing Earth's full military capabilities. Hundreds of ships, including the advanced Phantom-class vessels that had remained hidden during the battle. "We could launch a preemptive strike," she suggested. "Show them our true strength and force them to negotiate." Admiral Lee shook his head. "The Empire controls thousands of worlds. They can lose thousands of ships and still overwhelm us eventually." "Then what do you propose?" asked Diana. "Diplomacy," Lee replied, "but from a position of strength. We send a delegation to their capital, escorted by our most advanced ships. We show them exactly what we're capable of and offer them a choice: peaceful coexistence or mutual destruction." President Gallo nodded slowly. "Captain James will lead the diplomatic mission. Prepare our finest vessels." The Imperial Palace was in chaos. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy about human activity. Their ships had been spotted near important trade routes and strategic locations, always maintaining a respectful distance, but clearly mapping Imperial territory. In his private chambers, the Emperor received Admiral Thorne. "The humans have announced they're sending a diplomatic delegation," Thorne reported. "They request an audience with you directly." "How unusual," the Emperor mused. "Most species beg for such an honor." "These humans don't beg, Your Eminence. They've also informed us that their delegation will be accompanied by 3 of their vessels." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "They dare bring warships to Nexus Prime." "We've attempted to scan these ships," Thorne continued, his voice growing quieter. "Our sensors, they can barely detect them. Whatever technology they're using, it's beyond our current understanding." For the first time in centuries, the Emperor felt something close to fear. A species that had evolved in harsh conditions, developed technology at an unprecedented rate, and now possessed capabilities that the Empire couldn't match. These humans were either the greatest threat or the greatest opportunity the Empire had faced in millennia. "Prepare for their arrival," he ordered. "I will see these humans for myself." As the human diplomatic vessels approached Nexus Prime, Captain James stood on the bridge of the Resolution, Earth's newest and most advanced warship. Unlike the Defiance, which had been designed to impress while concealing its true capabilities, the Resolution hid nothing. Its quantum shield technology, phase shift engines, and gravity manipulation systems were all fully visible to Imperial scanners. "They're scanning us continuously," reported his science officer. James nodded. "Let them see everything." It's time they understood what they're dealing with. The 3 human ships moved into orbit around the Imperial capital, their presence causing a sensation among the planet's inhabitants. Never before had foreign vessels been allowed so close to the seat of Imperial power. As James prepared to board the shuttle that would take him to the surface, his communication officer called out, "Captain, we're detecting energy surges from an Imperial outpost near Jupiter. They're attacking Earth's outer colonies." James froze. "Confirm that." "Confirmed, sir. It appears to be a rogue Imperial faction. They've launched an assault on our settlements in the Jupiter system." James's expression hardened. It seems not everyone in the Empire wants peace. He opened a channel to Earth. "General West, we have a situation. Request permission to show the Empire exactly what happens when someone attacks human colonies." The response came quickly. "Permission granted, Captain. The Resolution is authorized for full combat deployment." James turned to his crew. "Prepare the ship for phase shift. We're going to teach the Empire a lesson they won't forget." Marcus moved silently through the dimly lit corridor of the human ship Defiance. As the Empire's top science officer and spy, he had infiltrated many alien vessels before, but never had he felt so uncomfortable. Everything about this ship felt wrong. The technology was too advanced, too elegant for a species that had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. His specialized suit made him nearly invisible to most detection systems. At least that had been true on every other mission. Here, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Marcus paused at a junction and consulted his scanner. The ship's power core should be 2 levels down. That's where he would find the answers Admiral Thorne needed. "Lost?" asked a calm voice behind him. Marcus froze. Slowly, he turned to face a human in a blue uniform. "Captain James, Impressive technology, James continued, gesturing at Marcus's stealth suit. But our sensors detected you the moment you left your shuttle. Marcus deactivated his camouflage. There was no point maintaining the pretense. Then why allow me to board? James smiled. Curiosity. We wanted to see what you were looking for. He gestured toward a nearby door. Come with me. In the depths of the Imperial flagship, Admiral Thorne faced the holographic images of the 12 members of the Imperial Council. Their giant translucent heads floated above the conference table, expressions ranging from concern to outright anger. These humans possess technology that should be impossible for their development stage, Thorne explained. Their shields and weapon systems exceed our own. Impossible, declared Counselor Vex, the ancient representative of the core worlds. No species develops such technology without outside help. They must have found ancient artifacts or stolen from advanced civilizations. My science team found no evidence of that, Thorne replied. All indications suggest these advancements are their own. The Emperor's representative, a thin being with elongated features, leaned forward. The question is not how they acquired this technology, but what threat they pose to Imperial stability. Thorne straightened his posture. Based on our scans and intelligence, I believe they pose a significant threat. Their homeworld shows signs of extensive defensive capabilities. More concerning still, we've detected evidence of human colonies in nearby systems, all heavily fortified. Your recommendation? Asked the Emperor's representative. A full battle group to assess their true military capacity, Thorne said without hesitation. We must determine if they are merely defensive or harbor expansionist intentions. The council members exchanged glances before the Emperor's representative spoke again. Very well. The 7th Battle Group will divert to your position. Determine the full extent of human capabilities and their threat level. If necessary, you are authorized to implement Protocol 16. Thorne's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, the only sign of his surprise. Protocol 16 was planetary subjugation, the forceful integration of a species into the Empire. Understood, he replied. For the glory of the Empire. Captain James led Marcus to what appeared to be an engine room. But unlike any engine room Marcus had ever seen, this one was almost empty. In the center floated a small glowing blue sphere contained within a transparent cube. Your power core? Marcus asked, unable to hide his disbelief. One of our older models, James replied. It powers all non-essential systems. Marcus's scanner almost overloaded as he pointed it at the sphere. This older model produces more energy than our Imperial battlecruisers. James shrugged. Necessity drives innovation. Earth is resource poor compared to many worlds. We had to become efficient. Marcus studied the human captain. You're showing me this intentionally. Why? Because you're going to report back to your admiral, and I want you to tell him exactly what you saw. And what is it that I'm seeing? Marcus asked carefully. A glimpse, James said. Just a glimpse of what humans are capable of. General Diana West stood before the United Defense Command, 17 men and women representing Earth's combined military forces. The atmosphere in the underground chamber was tense. The Imperial spy has been allowed limited access to the Defiance as planned, she reported. Captain James is feeding him carefully selected information. Admiral Lee, commander of Earth's Pacific Fleet, leaned forward. And are they taking the bait? Completely, Diana confirmed. Our monitoring of their communications indicates they're calling for reinforcements. A battle group is being dispatched to assess us. Then we must decide now, said President Gallo, his voice grave. Do we reveal our full military capability and risk immediate conflict, or continue the deception? Diana activated the central holographic display, showing the position of Earth's hidden fleets. Our stealth technology remains undetected. We have the advantage of surprise. However, a full revelation might trigger a larger Imperial response than we can handle. What about our phase shift technology? Asked Admiral Lee. Do they suspect we have it? No, Diana replied. Their spy has seen nothing beyond conventional FTL drives, albeit more advanced than they expected. They have no idea we can shift entire fleets between dimensions. President Gallo stood, his decision made. We show them enough to make them cautious, but not enough to make them desperate. Deploy Defense Plan Delta. Second-tier vessels only. Marcus returned to the Imperial flagship, his mind racing with what he had seen. Admiral Thorne listened to his report with growing concern. You're certain this was an older model power system? Thorne demanded. The human captain had no reason to lie about that. Marcus replied. Their technological advancement is genuine and self-developed. And sir, I believe they were showing me exactly what they wanted me to see. Thorne paced the command deck. They're playing games with us. There's something else, Marcus added. While accessing their computer systems, I found references to their home planet. Earth is classified as a death world by galactic standards. Higher gravity, higher radiation, more extreme weather, and more aggressive life forms than most inhabited planets. What are you suggesting? That humans evolved in conditions that would kill most species in the Empire. Their entire history has been one of adaptation to harsh conditions and competition. It explains their rapid technological development. Thorne stopped pacing. The 7th battle group will arrive in 2 standard days. Then we'll see just how advanced these humans really are. On the Defiance, Captain James reported to General West via secure channel. The spy left with exactly the information we wanted him to have, he confirmed. Our sources within their fleet indicate they're preparing for a major exercise to test our capabilities. Diana nodded. The Imperial Battle Group will arrive soon. President Gallo has authorized the deployment of our Aegis-class vessels. Not the Phantom Fleet, James asked, surprised. Not yet. We need to see how they respond to a moderate show of force first. James looked troubled. These Imperials have conquered thousands of worlds, General. They won't stop at a show of force. Exactly, Diana replied. Which is why we need to carefully manage how much of our hand we show. Too little, and they'll think us easy prey. Too much, and they might bring their full might against us. And if they attack regardless. Diana's expression hardened. Then they'll learn why it was a mistake to threaten a species that evolved on a world that tries to kill them every day. James nodded. As he ended the transmission, he gazed out at the stars, where somewhere an Imperial battle group was heading toward Earth. The coming days would determine whether humanity would find a place in the galactic community through peace or war. But one thing was certain. The Empire had gravely underestimated what humans were capable of. They were about to learn their mistake. The Imperial 7th Battle Group emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 27 warships, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble destroyers, arranged in perfect formation. It was a fleet that had crushed planetary defenses across hundreds of worlds. On the command deck of the lead dreadnought, Imperial Verdict, Admiral Thorne stood beside Fleet Commander Dax, the battle group's leader. These humans have only a handful of ships that we've detected, Dax said confidently. This display of force should bring them to their senses quickly. Thorne wasn't so sure. Don't underestimate them, Commander. There's something unusual about these humans. All species bow before sufficient Imperial might, Dax replied. Now, let's see what these humans are truly capable of. The emergency alarms sounded throughout Earth's defense headquarters. General Diana West rushed into the command center where tactical displays showed the newly arrived Imperial fleet. 27 vessels, reported her aide, including 3 dreadnoughts. President Gallo entered the room, his face grim. They're not wasting any time. We're receiving a transmission from the Imperial fleet, announced the communications officer. The main screen activated, showing Fleet Commander Dax, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he spoke. People of Earth, the Galactic Empire welcomes you to the greater community of civilized species. To assess your readiness for formal membership, we request a joint military exercise with your defense forces. Diana and the President exchanged glances. This transparent trap was exactly what they had anticipated. "Deploy the Aegis fleet," ordered the president. "Captain James will command." The Defiance led a formation of 15 human vessels toward the waiting Imperial fleet. These were Earth's Aegis-class ships, powerful by most standards, but deliberately designed to appear less advanced than they actually were. Captain James addressed the commanders of the human fleet. "Remember, we show them our defensive capabilities, not our offensive ones. Make them respect us, not fear us." The human ships formed a wedge formation as they approached the much larger Imperial fleet. The size difference was dramatic. The smallest Imperial destroyer was larger than the Defiance, and the Imperial dreadnoughts were the size of small cities. Fleet Commander Dax's voice came through the communications channel. "Captain James, your ships will engage in a simulated combat exercise with our vessels. This will help us understand your tactical capabilities and technological level." "We're ready, Commander," James replied calmly. "Although I notice your fleet seems positioned for actual combat rather than an exercise." Dax's expression didn't change. "A precaution only. The exercise begins in 1 standard hour." As the transmission ended, James turned to his tactical officer. "They'll attack as soon as we're in range of their main weapons. Be ready." Admiral Thorne watched from the bridge of his flagship as the human vessels approached. Something wasn't right. The humans were bringing too few ships, and they were advancing too confidently. "Commander Dax," he said quietly, "I recommend caution. These humans may have hidden capabilities." Dax dismissed the concern with a gesture of his secondary arm. "Our scans show their technology is impressive, but not beyond our comprehension. Their ships have strong shields but limited weapons. They clearly prioritize defense over offense, the mark of a species that fears conflict. Or the mark of a species confident enough that they don't need to show their teeth," Thorne replied. The Imperial fleet suddenly broke formation, its ships spreading out to surround the human vessels. Their weapons systems activated, energy signatures spiking across the Imperial line. "They're powering weapons," reported the Defiance's tactical officer. "No warning." James nodded calmly. "As expected. Defensive protocols only. No offensive action without my direct order." The space between the fleets lit up as Imperial energy weapons fired simultaneously, a barrage that would have destroyed most planetary defense fleets instantly. But the human ships didn't explode. Their shields glowed bright blue as they absorbed the massive energy attack, bending and rippling but holding firm. On the Imperial flagship, Dax stared in disbelief. Impossible. No shields could withstand that barrage. "Fire again," he ordered. "All weapons, maximum power." The second Imperial attack was even more powerful than the first. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and graviton pulses, the complete arsenal of Imperial weaponry, converged on the human fleet. Again, the human shields held. Some ships showed fluctuations in their shield patterns, but none fell. Inside the Defiance, the bridge remained calm despite the massive attack. Crew members monitored their stations as if this were a routine drill. "Shield efficiency at 87% and holding," reported the engineering officer. "We could do this all day, Captain." James nodded. "Let's give them something to think about. Activate defensive countermeasures. Protocols 3 and 4 only." The human ship's shields changed color, shifting from blue to a deep purple. Then, as the next wave of Imperial weapons fire struck, something remarkable happened. The energy didn't just stop at the shields. It bounced back, returning to its sources. Several Imperial destroyers rocked violently as their own weapons fire reflected back at them. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to damage their forward weapons arrays. "What is happening?" Dax demanded, watching as his fleet's attack was turned against them. Admiral Thorne's inner eyelids blinked rapidly. "They're reflecting our energy weapons back at us. I've never seen shield technology capable of that." Captain James watched as the Imperial fleet regrouped. "Now we show them what happens when they attack Earth. All ships, prepare for limited counterattack. Disabling strikes only." The human vessels moved with surprising speed, their engines glowing with a soft white light as they accelerated to velocities the Imperial ships couldn't match. They darted between the larger Imperial vessels, targeting weapons systems and engines with precise energy pulses. Within minutes, half the Imperial fleet was drifting, their main systems disabled but their life support intact. No ships were destroyed, but many were effectively removed from the battle. From his flagship, Admiral Thorn watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. These humans had neutralized half of an Imperial battle group without destroying a single vessel. It was a display of precision and restraint that he had never witnessed in centuries of service. "We must withdraw and regroup," he urged Commander Dax. "These are clearly not their best ships, yet they'd disabled half our fleet without taking damage." Dax's pride was wounded, but he wasn't foolish. "Order all functioning vessels to fall back to defensive positions." As the remaining Imperial ships retreated to a safer distance, the Defiance moved to the front of the human formation. A transmission came through from Captain James. "Imperial Fleet, this is Captain James. Your exercise is concluded. We came prepared for peace or war. Your choice, which happens next." Admiral Thorn stepped forward. "This is Admiral Thorn. We acknowledge the conclusion of the exercise. Your technological capabilities are impressive." "More than impressive," James replied. "What you witnessed today was a small fraction of Earth's defense capability. We deployed our second-tier vessels only. Our response was measured and proportionate to your unprovoked attack." Thorn glanced at Commander Dax, who stood in stunned silence. "We request a formal diplomatic meeting," Thorn said carefully, "to discuss Earth's relationship with the Empire." James nodded. "We accept. But understand this, Admiral. Earth will never be subjugated. We are prepared to join the galactic community as equals, not subjects." As the transmission ended, Thorn turned to Dax. "We must report this to the Emperor immediately. These humans, they're unlike any species we've encountered." Dax could only nod, his gaze fixed on the human vessels that had so easily defeated his battle group. "What are they?" he whispered. "The future of the galaxy," Thorn replied quietly. "Whether the Empire accepts it or not." News of the battle spread through the Empire like wildfire. On the Imperial capital world, Nexus Prime, the Emperor himself called an emergency session of the High Council. The massive chamber, designed to intimidate with its soaring ceilings and imposing architecture, was filled with nervous whispers. "Silence," commanded the Emperor, his voice echoing through the hall. Unlike most species in the Empire, he had only 2 eyes, but they glowed with an unnatural purple light, the result of advanced life extension technologies. The room fell quiet as a hologram appeared in the center, showing the disabled Imperial ships drifting in space after their encounter with the human fleet. For the first time in 5,000 years, the Emperor said slowly, "An Imperial battle group has been defeated in direct combat." One of the counselors, a being with translucent skin showing its glowing internal organs, spoke up. "Surely defeated is too strong a word, Your Eminence. Our reports indicate no Imperial ships were destroyed." "That makes it worse," replied the Emperor. "These humans could have destroyed our fleet but chose not to. Their restraint shows confidence, not mercy." Admiral Thorn's hologram appeared beside the battle footage. He had been summoned to report directly to the Council. "Admiral," the Emperor addressed him, "explain how a species that has had faster-than-light capability for merely 50 years has developed technology that surpasses our own." Thorn's 4 eyes blinked nervously. "Our scientists are still analyzing the data, Your Eminence, but we have developed a theory. It relates to the humans' homeworld." He activated a display showing Earth. "This planet has several unique characteristics. Its gravity is 1.3 times higher than the galactic average for inhabited worlds. Its radiation levels from its star are unusually high, and its ecosystem contains more predatory species than 87% of known inhabited planets." "What are you suggesting?" asked a counselor. Simply put, humans evolved in conditions that would kill most species in the Empire, Thorne explained. Their entire history has been one of adaptation to harsh conditions. They developed technology not for comfort or expansion, but for survival. In the Imperial Science Academy, the top minds of the Empire worked frantically to understand human technology. Marcus, now chief of the Human Research Division, supervised dozens of scientists analyzing the battle data. The energy readings from their shields make no sense, complained one researcher. They seem to be using some form of quantum field manipulation that violates our understanding of physics. And their propulsion systems, added another. They're achieving velocities that should tear their ships apart, yet their structural integrity remains perfect. Marcus studied the holographic models of human ships floating above the central table. We're missing something fundamental about their approach to technology. Their ships aren't just more advanced, they're different in concept. A junior researcher approached nervously. Sir, I've been studying historical records of human communications we've intercepted over the decades. I found something interesting. He displayed a series of old human transmissions. Humans have a rich tradition of imagining the future through something they call science fiction. For centuries before they achieved spaceflight, they were already envisioning technologies like faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and artificial gravity. Marcus leaned forward, intrigued. You're suggesting their technological development was guided by these imaginations? Yes, sir. While most species develop technology to solve immediate problems, humans seem to dream of technologies first, then work to make them real. Marcus slowly nodded. A species that can imagine its future might not be bound by the same limitations as others. On Earth, President Gallo addressed the United Defense Command. The mood was cautiously optimistic following their victory over the Imperial battle group. The Resolution disappeared from orbit around Nexus Prime, leaving the Imperial observers in shock. One moment, the human flagship was there. The next, it had simply vanished. What happened? Demanded the Emperor, watching from his palace observatory. Did they activate some form of cloaking device? Admiral Thorne shook his head, staring at the empty space where the human ship had been. No, Your Eminence. This is something else entirely. Near Jupiter, an Imperial strike force of 15 warships bombarded the human colonies on Europa and Ganymede. The attack had been orchestrated by Commander Vex, a hardline Imperial officer who believed the only way to deal with humans was to crush them completely. Continue the assault, Vex ordered from his command ship. When these colonies are destroyed, the humans will understand their proper place in the Empire. Suddenly, alarms blared across his bridge. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear open directly ahead of his fleet. The Resolution emerged from what appeared to be a hole in reality. Impossible, whispered Vex. They couldn't have traveled from Nexus Prime so quickly. On the bridge of the Resolution, Captain James stood calmly. Open a channel to the Imperial vessels. When the connection was established, he spoke with cold precision. Imperial Fleet, this is Captain James of Earth. You are attacking peaceful human settlements. Cease fire immediately and withdraw. Commander Vex's 4 eyes blinked in fury. We do not recognize your authority, human. The Empire has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. You will submit or be destroyed. James sighed. Very well. You've made your choice. He turned to his tactical officer. Activate the quantum field. Non-lethal protocols. The Resolution began to glow with a soft, pulsing white light. The light expanded outward in a perfect sphere, engulfing the entire Imperial fleet. As it touched each Imperial ship, their weapons fell silent and their engines shut down. What's happening? Vex demanded as his ship systems failed one by one. Even life support was reduced to emergency power. On his command console, a message appeared in perfect Imperial script. Your technology now serves us. Back at Nexus Prime, the Emperor and Admiral Thorne watched in astonishment as real-time footage showed the Resolution neutralizing the entire Imperial strike force without firing a single conventional weapon. "What are we seeing?" the Emperor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus, who had been called to the palace to observe, explained, "They appear to have developed a technology that can override our ship systems remotely. But more importantly, they somehow traveled from here to Jupiter almost instantly." "Phase shifting," Admiral Thorne said quietly. "What?" The Emperor turned to him. "During our intelligence gathering, we found references to something called phase shift technology in human scientific discussions. We dismissed it as theoretical. It appears we were wrong." The Emperor's eyes glowed more intensely. A species that can move instantly across vast distances could appear anywhere in the Empire without warning. Thorne finished the thought. No world would be safe if they chose to attack. Captain James addressed the crew of Commander Vex's flagship. The Imperial officers had been gathered in their main hall, where James's image appeared on their communication screen. "Your ships are disabled but undamaged," James explained. "Life support and basic functions will continue. In 6 hours, your systems will reboot and you'll regain control of your vessels." "This is an outrage," Vex shouted. "The Empire will respond with full force." James smiled slightly. "I'm counting on a response, Commander, but not the one you're thinking of." The screen switched to show the 3 human ships, the Resolution and 2 escort vessels, forming a triangular formation around the disabled Imperial fleet. The human ships began to glow, and then, impossibly, the entire formation, Imperial and human ships together, vanished. In orbit around Nexus Prime, space rippled again. The Resolution reappeared, surrounded by the 15 captured Imperial warships. Panic erupted across the Imperial capital as citizens looked up to see the disabled Imperial fleet hanging in their sky, escorted by the human vessels. In the Imperial palace, the Emperor watched in stunned silence. "They brought Commander Vex's entire fleet here," Admiral Thorne said, his voice filled with awe. "Across thousands of light years." Instantly, a communication request came through from the Resolution. The Emperor nodded, and Captain James appeared on the palace's main screen. "Your Eminence," James began formally, "we have apprehended the Imperial forces that attacked our colonies. They will be returned to your custody once our diplomatic discussions are complete." The Emperor stared at the human captain for a long moment. "I believe," he finally said, "that those discussions should begin immediately." 3 days later, in the Grand Hall of the Imperial Palace, Captain James stood before the assembled Imperial Council. The massive chamber was also filled with representatives from dozens of species from across the Empire, all eager to see these humans who had defied Imperial power. "For 10,000 years," James began, "the Empire has maintained order through technological superiority and military might. Today that era ends." Murmurs spread through the crowd. "Not through war," James continued, "but through partnership. Earth proposes a new galactic concordat, a restructuring of the Empire into a true federation of worlds, where all species have representation based on their merits, not their military power." The Emperor leaned forward on his ancient throne. "And if we refuse?" James gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing hundreds of human ships, the full Earth defense fleet, including the advanced Phantom-class vessels that could phase shift between dimensions. "We could have come with this fleet," James said quietly. "Instead, we came to talk. That is the choice humanity always prefers, cooperation over conflict." Admiral Thorne stepped forward. "Your Eminence, I have witnessed human technology firsthand. They could have destroyed our forces, but they disabled them instead. They could have attacked our worlds, but they offered peace. I believe their proposal deserves consideration." The Emperor studied the human fleet display, then looked at James. "What makes humans different? Why did you develop in decades what took other species centuries?" James smiled. "We come from a world that tried to kill us at every turn. High gravity, radiation, natural disasters, predators. Surviving Earth meant constant innovation. But more importantly, we learn to work together. Our greatest strength isn't our technology, it's our unity. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then, to the shock of the assembly, he stood from his throne and descended the steps, something he hadn't done in public for centuries. He approached Captain James and extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting that his advisors had explained to him. "Perhaps," said the Emperor, "it is time for the galaxy to learn from Earth." 1 month later, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to sign the Galactic Concordat. The Empire would be reformed into the Galactic Federation, with all species having an equal voice. On the observation deck of the resolution, Captain James stood with Admiral Thorne, watching the ceremony on the screens. "Your ships really are quite remarkable," Thorne said. "I still don't understand how you developed such technology so quickly." James smiled. "Perhaps the better question is why the Empire stopped innovating. Comfort breeds complacency, Admiral. Humanity never had that luxury." "And now?" Thorne asked. "What will humans do with their power?" James looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. "Explore. Learn. Grow. The same things we've always done. But now, we won't do it alone." Below them, the Emperor signed the Concordat, and a new era of galactic history began, one where humanity's drive and innovation would help lead all species toward a future brighter than any single civilization could achieve on its own. The old cargo ship groaned as it pushed through space, its metal joints creaking with every minor course correction. Captain Jack Walker sat in his worn command chair, patting the scratched armrest like he was soothing an old horse. The bridge of the HMS Perseverance was quiet, except for the constant hum of machines that should have been replaced decades ago. "Captain, we've got another warning light," Lieutenant Maria Stone called out from her station. She didn't even sound worried anymore. Warning lights had become as common as breathing on the Perseverance. "Let me guess," Walker said, running a hand through his graying hair. "The port engine's pressure valve again." He already knew the answer. That valve had been giving them trouble for the past 3 months. "No, sir. This time, it's the starboard cargo hold. Temperature's rising." Maria tapped her screen, which flickered twice before stabilizing. Even the displays were struggling to stay alive on this ship. Walker stood up and stretched. "Ben, you hearing this?" "Already on it, Cap." Chief Engineer Ben Cooper's voice crackled through the ship's ancient comm system. "Just need to bypass the secondary cooling circuit. Again, give me 5 minutes." The Perseverance was the oldest human cargo hauler still operating in this sector of space. Other captains had colorful names for it: the Flying Junkyard, Disaster Waiting to Happen, and Walker's Folly were among the more polite ones. But Walker saw something different when he looked at his ship. Where others saw patches and repairs, he saw solutions and creativity. Every jury-rigged system told a story of survival. "Incoming transmission," Maria announced. "It's the Stellar Commonwealth patrol ship again." Walker sighed. "Put them through." A holographic screen appeared in front of him, showing a pristine white bridge and an equally pristine officer in a perfectly pressed uniform. "S. Perseverance, this is Commander White of the CSS Exemplar. Your vessel has been flagged for 17 different safety violations in the past month alone. You are ordered to proceed to Station Delta 7 for immediate inspection and probable decommissioning." Walker put on his most charming smile. "Commander, we've been through this. My ship might not be pretty, but she's got all her papers in order. We're hauling essential medical supplies to the outer colonies, and you know as well as I do that they can't afford to wait." "Captain Walker," the commander's voice dripped with disdain, "your ship is an embarrassment to human spaceflight. The Commonwealth has standards." "Which we meet," Walker interrupted. "Maybe not with the shine and polish you'd like, but we meet them. Now, unless you're planning to physically stop us from delivering medicine to sick colonists, we'll be on our way." The commander's face reddened. "This is your final warning, Walker. The next time." The transmission cut off as the Perseverance's communication system crashed again. Walker couldn't help but laugh. Sometimes his ship's problems had perfect timing. "Should I try to restore the connection?" Maria asked, already knowing the answer. "Don't bother. Let's save the power for something important." Walker settled back into his chair. "Ben, how's that cooling system coming along?" "Fixed it." Ben's voice came through clearer this time. "Used some parts from that old food synthesizer nobody liked anyway. Should hold for a while." "Good man." Walker checked their course on his personal tablet. The main navigation console had stopped working months ago. They were still on track for their delivery to New Hope Colony, even if they were moving at speeds that would make modern ships cry. The bridge crew fell into their comfortable routine, each of them monitoring their stations with the kind of attention that came from knowing their ship could fall apart at any moment. They'd been together for 5 years now, ever since Walker had bought the Perseverance with his life savings. Most people thought he was crazy to spend everything on a ship that belonged in a museum or a scrapyard, but he'd seen the potential. 3 hours later, Maria broke the peaceful silence. "Captain, you should see this." Her voice was different now, tense. Walker moved to her station, studying the news feed on her screen. The headlines made his blood run cold. "Stellar Commonwealth DECLARES War on Earth and AL Human Colonies." "Get everyone to the mess hall," Walker ordered. "They need to hear this." 10 minutes later, the entire crew, all 12 of them, gathered around the mess hall's single table. The news played on multiple screens, showing Commonwealth warships moving into position around major human space stations. "They're saying we're too unpredictable," Maria read from her tablet. "That our expansion needs to be contained before we destabilize the entire galaxy. They're demanding immediate surrender of all human military forces and the placement of all colonies under Commonwealth control." "Like hell," Ben muttered, speaking for everyone. Walker studied his crew's faces. They were scared, angry, and uncertain, but they were also waiting for him to tell them what to do. He took a deep breath. "The Commonwealth thinks they know everything about us. They look at ships like ours and see nothing but junk. They see our ways of doing things as primitive and dangerous." He placed his hands on the table, leaning forward. "But that's where they're wrong. Every single one of you proves them wrong every day. We keep this ship flying with nothing but spare parts and determination. We deliver supplies to colonies that the fancy corporate ships won't touch. We solve problems in ways their computers say are impossible." He straightened up. "They want to go to war with humanity. Fine. But they're about to learn that their biggest mistake was thinking they could predict us, that they could control us, that they could judge us by their standards." "What can we do?" someone asked. "We're just one old cargo ship." Walker smiled. "We do what we've always done. We survive. We adapt. We help where we can. The Commonwealth's already written us off. They won't even bother to scrap ships like ours for their war effort. And that's going to be their second biggest mistake." "What's their first?" Maria asked. "Starting this war in the first place." Walker turned to Ben. "How many of those experimental modifications have you been wanting to try on the engines?" Ben's eyes lit up. "You mean the ones you said were too crazy to risk?" "Those exactly. Get started on them. Maria, plot a course for the New Hope Colony. They'll need those medical supplies more than ever now." Walker looked around the room. "The rest of you, think about every crazy idea you've ever had for improving your stations. Every wild theory about how to make things work better. It's time to try them all." The crew dispersed with a new energy, their fear transformed into purpose. Walker stayed in the mess hall, watching the news reports. The Commonwealth's warships were beautiful, perfect machines of war. Every system optimized, every response calculated, every movement coordinated with computer precision. He thought about his own ship, with its patched hull and jury-rigged systems, about how it sometimes turned left when you told it to go right, or how the artificial gravity fluctuated if you ran the microwave, about how every day brought a new problem that required a new solution. The Commonwealth thought this would be a simple war. They thought their superior technology and perfect organization would guarantee victory. They looked at ships like the Perseverance and saw only weakness. Walker smiled as he felt his ship shudder beneath his feet, already imagining what Ben was doing to the engines. The Commonwealth was about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemy isn't the strongest or the most advanced. It's the one you don't think is worth worrying about. The Perseverance limped through the darkness of space, running with its power systems at minimum to avoid detection. They'd just finished delivering medical supplies to New Hope Colony, sneaking past 2 Commonwealth patrol ships in the process. Now they were deep in what used to be neutral space, following a distress signal that nobody else seemed to notice. "I still think this is a bad idea," Maria said, checking the radar for the 10th time in as many minutes. "That signal doesn't match any known emergency frequencies." "Exactly why we should check it out," Walker replied, studying the strange readings on his tablet. "Commonwealth ships are too busy with their war to investigate anything unusual." Ben's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, those engine modifications are holding steady, but I wouldn't push them too hard. We're basically running on prayers and duct tape right now." "Aren't we always?" Walker smiled. The modifications Ben had made over the past week had turned their old cargo hauler into something entirely new. The Perseverance could now change its power signature at will, making it appear as different types of ships to long-range scanners. It wasn't much, but it had kept them alive so far. The source of the distress signal finally came into view. It was a massive ship, easily 3 times the size of the Perseverance, floating dead in space. Its sleek design and pristine white hull marked it as Commonwealth technology, but something was off about it. "No damage that I can see," Maria reported. "No signs of battle or mechanical failure. It's just empty." "Running deeper scans now," Ben announced. "This is weird, Captain. The ship's putting out almost no power, but I'm getting readings that suggest its core is still active. And these designs, this isn't a normal Commonwealth vessel. The hull markings identify it as the CSS Innovator. It's some kind of research ship." Walker leaned forward in his chair. "Any signs of life?" "None," Maria confirmed. "But the internal atmosphere is still stable. We could board her if we wanted to." "If we wanted to get ourselves killed," someone muttered from the back of the bridge. Walker stood up. "Ben, Maria, you're with me. Everyone else, keep the engines hot. If anything bigger than a space rock shows up, you get out of here immediately." "That's an order." 20 minutes later, Walker led his small team through the airlock and onto the abandoned Commonwealth ship. Their magnetic boots clicked against the polished floor as they moved through the empty corridors, lights from their helmets cutting through the darkness. "This place gives me the creeps," Ben said, scanning every room they passed with his tools. "It's too clean, too perfect." "Not for long," Maria pointed out. "Look at the walls. There's some kind of corruption in the metal. Like it's changing somehow." Walker touched one of the walls. The surface felt wrong. Not quite solid, not quite liquid. "Ben, what are you getting from your scans?" "Something incredible," the engineer breathed. "This ship, they were experimenting with some kind of adaptive technology, something that could change its molecular structure on command. But according to these readings, it got out of control, started changing in ways they didn't expect." They found the main research lab, and Walker felt his jaw drop. The room was filled with equipment he'd never seen before, but what caught his attention was the way everything seemed to flow together. Walls merged with computers, computers merged with tools, all of it connected in ways that defied normal engineering. They were trying to create the perfect adaptive system, Maria said, reading from a still active terminal. Something that could repair itself, evolve, become stronger. But they couldn't control it. The changes became random, unpredictable. They abandoned the project because it was too chaotic. Walker picked up what looked like a small cylinder from one of the workbenches. Unlike everything else in the room, it was separate, self-contained. "What's this?" Ben scanned it. Some kind of control module. "It's still active, but it's stable. They must have figured out how to contain small amounts of the technology." "Pack it up," Walker ordered. "Everything you can carry that isn't connected to the ship. Data cores, spare parts, anything that looks useful." "Captain," Maria's voice was worried. "You're not thinking of using their abandoned tech." "That's exactly what I'm thinking." Walker helped Ben carefully disconnect several pieces of equipment. "The Commonwealth threw this away because they couldn't control it. But we're not looking for control. We're looking for chaos." They worked quickly, salvaging what they could from the research lab. As they were finishing, Ben's scanner started beeping urgently. "Captain, the ship's power core is becoming unstable. The adaptive technology is spreading into critical systems. We need to leave now." They ran back through the corridors, which seemed to be subtly shifting around them. Twice they had to find new routes when they found passages had sealed themselves off. They made it back to the Perseverance just as the research ship's hull began to visibly ripple. "Get us out of here," Walker ordered as soon as they were through the airlock. The Perseverance's engines roared to life, pushing them away from the doomed vessel. Through the viewport, they watched as the CSS Innovator slowly collapsed in on itself, its perfect form dissolving into a chaotic mass before exploding in a burst of energy that their sensors couldn't even categorize. Hours later, after they'd put enough distance between themselves and the debris field, Walker stood in engineering with Ben, staring at their salvaged treasures. "I can integrate some of this with our systems," Ben said, excited despite his exhaustion. "The control module especially. It won't be pretty. But when has anything on this ship ever been pretty?" Walker grinned. "Do it. Start small. Keep it contained. We'll let it adapt to us instead of trying to force it to work the way the Commonwealth wanted. You do realize this is completely insane, right?" Maria had joined them, arms crossed but eyes curious. "We're talking about using experimental technology that a highly advanced civilization gave up on because it was too dangerous." "Exactly," Walker nodded. "They gave up on it because they couldn't make it perfect. But we've never needed perfect. We just need it to work." Over the next few days, Ben carefully integrated pieces of the salvage technology into the Perseverance's systems. The changes were subtle at first. Power fluctuations stabilized themselves without any input, minor hull breaches sealed on their own, and the ship's aging computers began processing data in new and unexpected ways. "It's like the ship is learning," Ben reported, showing Walker the readings. "Every problem we encounter, every jury-rigged solution we come up with, it adapts and improves on it, but not in any way I can predict or control. It's doing things that should be impossible according to normal engineering principles." Walker watched as a crack in one of the view screens sealed itself, the material shifting and flowing until it was stronger than before. Normal engineering principles are what got the Commonwealth into this war. They think they can predict and control everything. But sometimes the best solutions come from embracing the chaos. The Perseverance shuddered slightly, its engines humming in a new tone that somehow felt right. In the darkness of space, its patched and battered hull began to shift, the salvage technology spreading through its systems like roots through soil. The Commonwealth had abandoned this research because they couldn't control it. But Walker and his crew didn't want to control it. They'd wanted to work with it, to let it grow and change in its own unpredictable way. The weakest ship in human space was about to become something entirely new, something that no Commonwealth computer could predict or understand, something that would show them the true power of human adaptability. The Commonwealth warships appeared out of hyperspace like angry wasps, their weapons already charged and targeting systems locked onto the small mining colony below. The colony's 1,000 inhabitants had nowhere to run. Their few escape pods wouldn't be enough, and no ship would dare break through a Commonwealth blockade. No ship except the Perseverance. Battle stations, Walker ordered calmly, watching the enemy fleet through their newly adaptive view screen. The screen shifted and enhanced automatically, showing him exactly what he needed to see without any input. After 3 weeks of working with the salvage technology, the entire ship had become like this: anticipating, changing, evolving. 5 heavy cruisers, Maria reported. Standard Commonwealth attack formation. They're launching fighters. How many? 30. No, 40 fighters. All latest model. She paused. They haven't spotted us yet. Walker smiled. That was another thing their ship had learned to do. The adaptive technology had spread through their hull, constantly changing its surface in ways that confused Commonwealth sensors. To their advanced targeting systems, the Perseverance barely existed. Just another piece of space debris floating at the edge of the system. Ben, how are we looking? The ship's ready, Captain. Ben's voice was excited. Those Commonwealth upgrades we salvaged from their last patrol ship have integrated beautifully. The Perseverance actually understood how to improve them. You should see what she's done with the engines. Walker nodded. That was the beauty of their situation. Every time they encountered Commonwealth technology, their ship learned from it, adapted it, and turned it into something new. Something unpredictable. All right, people. Let's show them why they should have scraped us when they had the chance. Walker tapped his chair's armrest, and the ship responded instantly, systems coming alive in ways that still amazed him. Time to save some colonists. The Perseverance moved like a ghost through space, its hull shifting colors and patterns to match the background radiation. As they approached the Commonwealth fleet, Walker could see their perfect formation. Ships placed at mathematically precise intervals, fighters moving in carefully calculated patterns. They're starting their bombing run, Maria warned. 5 minutes until they're in range of the colony. Perfect. Walker leaned forward. Let's introduce some chaos into their perfect plan. Then, show them what we've learned about their own weapons. The Perseverance's newly adapted weapons came online, but not in any way the Commonwealth would recognize. Their salvage technology had merged with the ship's old systems in strange ways, creating hybrid weapons that defied conventional physics. The first shot looked like a normal plasma burst, until it split into dozens of smaller projectiles that curved and twisted through space, following paths that no computer could predict. Commonwealth fighters scattered, their formation breaking as their pilots tried to evade weapons that didn't behave according to any known rules. Direct hits on 3 fighters, Maria reported, amazement in her voice. Their shields didn't even register the attacks. It's like our weapons don't exist until they hit. That's because they don't, Ben explained over the comm. The ship's somehow phase-shifting the plasma bursts. They're literally popping in and out of normal space until impact. Walker watched as more Commonwealth fighters broke formation, confused by attacks their computers couldn't analyze or predict. The larger ships were turning now, finally registering the Perseverance as a threat. But even their advanced targeting systems couldn't get a lock on a ship that kept changing its signature. Time to make some noise, Walker said. Send the signal to the colony. Tell them to start their evacuation. We'll keep the Commonwealth busy. The Perseverance danced through space, moving in ways that should have torn a normal ship apart. But their hull adapted with each maneuver, strengthening where needed, becoming more flexible where required. Commonwealth weapons fire passed through empty space as their targeting computers tried and failed to predict where the ship would be. Colony reports first wave of evacuees is away, Maria called out. Emergency pods are launching now. Commonwealth cruisers are repositioning. Another crew member reported. They're trying to cut off the escape routes. Walker watched the enemy ships move into their new formation. It was perfect, of course. Every position calculated to maximize coverage and minimize blind spots. But perfect wasn't always better. Ben, remember that trick the ship learned last week? The one you said was impossible. You mean the jump drive modification? Captain, we haven't tested that yet. The ship came up with it on its own. and I have no idea how it works." "Sounds perfect." Walker grinned. "Do it." The Perseverance's engines howled as new energy coursed through them. The ship shuddered, and for a moment Walker thought they'd made a mistake. Then reality seemed to blur around them. They jumped, but not like a normal ship. Instead of moving through hyperspace in a straight line, they seemed to fold through multiple points in space simultaneously. The Perseverance appeared and disappeared at dozens of locations around the Commonwealth fleet, each appearance lasting just long enough to fire its impossible weapons before vanishing again. The perfect formation of Commonwealth ships dissolved into chaos. Their computers, programmed to respond to normal tactical situations, couldn't handle a threat that ignored the laws of physics. Shots meant for the Perseverance hit other Commonwealth ships instead. Fighters crashed into each other trying to dodge attacks that came from everywhere and nowhere. "Colony reports 60% evacuated," Maria said. "But the Commonwealth is launching a second wave of fighters." "Good." Walker watched as their ship's systems adapted again, learning from the battle in real time. "Let them come. The more ships they send, the more the Perseverance learns." The next 10 minutes were pure chaos. The Perseverance moved like a ghost through the battlefield, its weapons becoming stranger and more effective with each shot. Commonwealth fighters found their own systems turning against them as the adaptive technology reached out through their targeting scans, infecting their computers with its unpredictable nature. "Colony evacuation complete," Maria finally reported. "All civilians are away." Walker nodded. "Time to leave our mark." "Ben, remember those Commonwealth missiles we salvaged? The ones the ship rebuilt?" "Yeah. But Captain, I still don't know exactly what they'll do." "Let's find out. Target their command ship." The missiles launched, looking like standard Commonwealth weapons at first. The enemy ships ignored them, their defense systems recognizing friendly signatures. Then the missiles changed, their forms shifting and splitting like liquid metal. By the time the Commonwealth realized the threat, it was too late. The explosion wasn't like anything Walker had ever seen. It rippled through space in impossible patterns, bypassing shields and armor as if they didn't exist. When it was over, the Commonwealth command ship was still intact. But its perfect systems were corrupted, infected with the same chaos that powered the Perseverance. "All ships, break off and retreat." The Commonwealth Admiral's voice crackled over all frequencies, fear evident in his tone. "The target vessel is not what we thought." "Repeat, full retreat." Walker watched as the mighty Commonwealth fleet fled, leaving behind their damaged command ship and dozens of floating fighters. The Perseverance had done what no human military vessel had managed. It had forced a Commonwealth battle group to retreat. "Send a message to Earth Command," Walker ordered. "Tell them we found a way to fight back. And tell them to start collecting every broken down, jury-rigged ship they can find. The Commonwealth thinks they can beat us with perfect ships and perfect tactics." He looked around his bridge, at the screens that shifted and changed to show exactly what was needed, at the walls that pulsed with energy that defied understanding, at his crew who had learned to work with chaos instead of fighting it. Let's show them what happens when humanity embraces imperfection. 3 months after their first major victory, the Perseverance wasn't alone anymore. Walker stood on his bridge, watching the radar screen as more ships joined their fleet. But these weren't the sleek military vessels Earth Command wanted to send. They were cargo haulers, mining ships, and ancient colony transports. Ships that, like the Perseverance, had been considered too old or too broken to be useful. 47 ships now, Maria reported, pride in her voice. All of them successfully integrated with versions of our adaptive technology. The screen in front of Walker shifted, showing him close-up views of their fleet. Each ship was different, the adaptive technology affecting them in unique ways. Some had developed living metal hulls that rippled like water. Others had grown organic-looking structures that housed weapons unlike anything the Commonwealth had ever seen. No two ships were alike, and that was their greatest strength. "Message from the Rising Star," a comm officer called out. The Rising Star had been a luxury passenger liner before the war. Now its elegant form housed systems that could turn Commonwealth targeting signals back on their own ships. They've spotted a major Commonwealth fleet heading for the Alpha Centauri colonies. At least 100 ships. They're getting desperate, Ben said, looking up from his engineering station. The station itself had evolved, its controls adapting to work perfectly with his particular habits. Ever since we shared our technology with other ships, they haven't won a single major battle. Walker nodded. The Commonwealth's perfect tactics were falling apart in the face of ships that ignored the laws of physics. Their standardized fleets couldn't handle enemies that changed their very nature mid-battle. But Walker knew they wouldn't give up easily. All ships, battle formations, he ordered, then smiled at the irony of those words. Their ships didn't do formations, not really. They'd move like a swarm of strange space creatures, each following its own path while somehow working together in ways that gave Commonwealth tactical computers fits. The Perseverance led their fleet toward Alpha Centauri, its engines humming with power that didn't show up on any sensor readings. The ship had grown stronger over the past months, learning from every encounter. Its hull now looked like flowing metal in some places and pure energy in others. The original adaptive technology had spread throughout every system, turning the once weak cargo hauler into something that defied classification. They found the Commonwealth fleet exactly where intelligence said it would be, moving in perfect formation toward the colonies. But something was different this time. Captain, Maria's voice was tense. I'm reading new energy signatures from their ships. They've modified their technology. Walker leaned forward, studying the enemy fleet. The Commonwealth ships still moved with mechanical precision, but their hulls had a new look to them. Harder, more angular, with strange devices mounted on their weapons. They're trying to copy us, Ben said, reading data from his evolved console. They've analyzed our technology and tried to recreate it, but they're doing it wrong. They're trying to control it, to make it fit their rules. That's their mistake, Walker smiled. They still don't understand. The chaos isn't a weapon to be controlled. It's a partner to work with. He opened a channel to their fleet. All ships, the Commonwealth wants to play our game. Let's show them how it's really done. The battle that followed was like nothing in human or Commonwealth history. The Commonwealth ships fired weapons that twisted through space like the Perseverances, but their attacks were rigid, programmed, predictable. The human fleet responded with pure chaos, each ship using the adaptive technology in its own unique way. A former mining vessel turned itself into pure energy for 3 seconds, passing through a Commonwealth battleship and leaving the larger vessel's systems corrupted with impossible data. An old planetary shuttle had somehow merged with a small asteroid, using it as both armor and weapon. The Rising Star danced through enemy fire, its hull splitting into multiple ghost images that all somehow fired real weapons. And the Perseverance led them all, showing what months of true cooperation with the adaptive technology could achieve. Its weapons didn't just bend space. They ignored it completely. Shots fired from its guns existed in multiple places at once, or traveled backward in time to hit ships where they had been moments before. Commonwealth fleet is breaking formation, Maria reported. Their new systems are failing. The adaptive technology is rejecting their attempts to control it. Walker watched as the enemy fleet's perfect coordination fell apart. Their copied technology was turning against them, creating chaos they couldn't handle. Ships crashed into each other as their navigation systems tried to plot courses through space that no longer followed normal rules. Their flagship is changing course, someone called out. They're trying to retreat. Not this time, Walker said quietly. The Perseverance had learned something new, something it had been waiting to try. He felt the ship's excitement. There was no other word for it. As it prepared to unleash its latest impossibility. The ship's hull began to glow with energy that hurt to look at. Strange formations grew and shifted across its surface, each one emitting frequencies that made Commonwealth sensors go crazy. Then, with a pulse that rippled through space itself, the Perseverance released its attack. Reality seemed to bend around the Commonwealth fleet. Their ships' perfect formations, their calculated distances, their measured responses, all of it became meaningless as space itself stopped behaving according to their computers' understanding of physics. Ships found themselves overlapping with their own positions from moments ago. Weapons fired at enemies hit nothing because their targets existed in multiple places simultaneously. "What did we just do?" Maria asked, staring at her readings in disbelief. "I think," Ben said slowly, "the ship just weaponized uncertainty itself. It's not just affecting their ships, it's affecting the way their computers understand reality." The Commonwealth fleet was in complete chaos now. Their attempts to copy the adaptive technology had left them vulnerable to its true nature. Ships were powering down, their crews unable to trust any readings or responses from their own systems. Others were firing blindly, their weapons passing through space that might or might not contain their targets. "All ships, target their flagship," Walker ordered. "Let's end this." The human fleet moved as one, not in formation, but in harmony. Each ship attacked in its own way, using its unique evolution of the adaptive technology. The Commonwealth flagship, its perfect systems corrupted by its own failed attempt to control chaos, never had a chance. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. When it was over, the remaining Commonwealth ships fled, leaving behind a battlefield that would puzzle physicists for decades to come. In some places, space itself seemed to have developed permanent quirks, areas where the laws of physics were more suggestions than rules. "Send word to Earth Command," Walker said as their fleet regrouped. "Tell them the Commonwealth's attempt to copy our technology has failed. They tried to turn chaos into order, and it backfired exactly as we thought it would." He looked around his bridge, at the living metal walls that pulsed with energy, at the screens that showed information in ways that somehow made perfect sense, despite defying normal display technologies. The Perseverance had come so far from the broken-down cargo hauler it had once been, and now it had proven that the Commonwealth's greatest strength, their need for perfect control, was actually their greatest weakness. "Where to now, Captain?" Maria asked. Walker smiled. Now we take the fight to them. They thought they could copy our technology without understanding our way of thinking. Let's show them what happens when they try to fight chaos with control." The Perseverance's engines hummed in agreement, its adaptive systems already preparing for the next impossible thing they would achieve together. In trying to copy humanity's chaotic nature, the Commonwealth had only proven why they could never truly understand it, and that understanding would cost them the war. The Commonwealth capital world gleamed like a perfect jewel in space, its cities arranged in precise geometric patterns that could be seen from orbit. Walker stood on the Perseverance's bridge, now barely recognizable as the same ship that had started this war. The walls flowed with living metal and pure energy, screens appeared and disappeared as needed, and the entire ship hummed with power that scientists still couldn't explain. "Their entire home fleet is moving to intercept," Maria reported. Her station had evolved into something that looked more like a floating cloud of data than a traditional console. 500 ships. Everything they have left. "And we have 300 of ours," Ben added from his engineering station, which had merged with the ship's systems so completely that he seemed to float in a web of pure information. Every broken down, patched up, impossible ship in human space, all running their own versions of the adaptive technology. Walker nodded, watching as their fleet emerged from jump points that shouldn't have been possible. Old mining ships that now ignored gravity, cargo haulers that could split into multiple copies of themselves, passenger liners that had evolved weapons that fired pure probability. Each one had started as something the Commonwealth considered worthless, and each one had become something wonderful and strange. "Message from the Commonwealth High Command," a comm officer called out. They're asking for our surrender." Walker actually laughed at that. "They still don't understand, do they?" Put them on screen. The main view screen shifted, forming itself from particles of light into a window showing the Commonwealth Supreme Admiral. The alien's perfect uniform and precise posture stood in stark contrast to the organic, flowing bridge of the Perseverance. "This is your final warning," the Admiral said, his voice carrying the same mechanical precision as his ship's. "Your chaotic technology has caused enough damage. Surrender now, and we will help you return to normal space operations under our guidance." "Normal?" Walker smiled. "Admiral, look at your sensors. Really look at what our ships have become. There is no more normal. Your perfect universe of rules and regulations doesn't exist anymore. We've shown the galaxy a better way." "Better?" The Admiral's voice rose slightly, the most emotion Walker had ever heard from a Commonwealth officer. "You've infected space itself with your chaos. There are regions where our ships can't go because physics simply doesn't work properly anymore. This has to stop." "No," Walker said quietly. "It has to spread. The universe isn't meant to be controlled, Admiral. It's meant to be experienced, adapted to, worked with. That's what humanity has always understood, and what you never will." He cut the transmission with a wave of his hand. The Commonwealth fleet was moving into attack formation. Perfect lines and angles, every ship exactly where their computers said it should be. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't so predictable. "All ships," Walker called out to their fleet. "The Commonwealth has given us their answer. They choose control over chaos, perfection over adaptation. Let's show them why that's the wrong choice. Every ship, do what you do best. Be unpredictable. Be impossible. Be human." The battle began with a display of physics-defying chaos that would be studied for centuries. Human ships attacked in ways that ignored every rule of space combat. Some vessels phased between different realities, firing weapons that existed in all of them simultaneously. Others created temporary time loops, trapping Commonwealth ships in moments that repeated until their perfect systems crashed. The Perseverance led the charge, now fully evolved into something that was more concept than ship. Its hull shifted between solid metal, pure energy, and states of matter that had no names. Its weapons fired shots that hit their targets before they were fired, or created temporary dimensions where Commonwealth ships found themselves fighting their own reflections. "Their formation is breaking," Maria reported with satisfaction. "Their computers can't handle the contradicting data from all our different ships." She was right. The Commonwealth's perfect fleet was falling into disarray. Their attempts to maintain formation became impossible as space itself seemed to warp and twist around them. Human ships weren't just fighting them. They were changing the very rules of the battlefield. "They're launching their new weapon," Ben warned. "The one they think can counter our technology." Walker watched as the Commonwealth flagship released what looked like a wave of pure order, a field of energy that tried to force reality to behave according to their rules. For a moment, it seemed to work. Human ships near the wave began to lose their impossible abilities, their adaptive technology struggling against the enforced normalcy. But then something wonderful happened. "Captain," Ben called out, excitement in his voice. "The ship, it's doing something new." "They all are." The Perseverance shuddered, its entire form vibrating with energy. Around them, other human ships were doing the same. The adaptive technology that powered them wasn't fighting against the Commonwealth's wave of order. It was absorbing it, learning from it, changing it. Of course, Walker breathed. That's what they never understood. Chaos doesn't fight order. It embraces it, adapts it, transforms it into something new. The wave of order hit their fleet fully, but instead of forcing their ships back to normal, it became part of their chaos. Human vessels began using the Commonwealth's own order as a weapon, creating areas where physics worked so perfectly that their enemies' ships couldn't function. Perfect order, it turned out, was just as impossible as perfect chaos. "Commonwealth fleet is in full retreat," Maria announced. Their flagship is evolving." The Commonwealth's massive flagship was changing, its perfect form twisting as the adaptive technology finally broke through their controls. The ship seemed to be trying to adapt in 1,000 different ways at once, its crew unable to stop the transformation they had fought so hard against. "Open a channel to all Commonwealth ships," Walker ordered. When the channel was ready, he spoke clearly. "This is Captain Walker of the HSS Perseverance. Your flagship is experiencing what happens when you try to control something that's meant to be free. Order and chaos aren't enemies. They're two parts of the same whole. Surrender now, and we'll help you understand that." The Commonwealth fleet hung in space, watching as their flagship continued to change. Finally, the Supreme Admiral's voice came through, sounding tired, and for the first time, uncertain. Perhaps we were wrong. We thought humanity's chaos would destroy the galaxy. Instead, you've shown us a new way to exist within it. We surrender." The war ended not with a final battle, but with a transformation. The Commonwealth learned to accept that their perfect order wasn't the only way. Human ships, led by the Perseverance, began teaching them how to work with the adaptive technology instead of trying to control it. Walker stood on his bridge one last time, preparing to meet with the Commonwealth leadership. His ship had changed so much from the broken-down cargo hauler it had once been, but in many ways, it was still the same. It still solved problems in unexpected ways. It still survived against impossible odds. It was still perfectly imperfect. "You know," he said to his crew, "they called us the weakest ship in the galaxy once. Said we weren't worth scrapping. Shows what they know." Ben grinned, his station rippling with agreeing lights. "No," Walker smiled. "They were right. We were weak. But they never understood that being weak, being broken, being imperfect, that's what made us strong. Because when you're not perfect, you learn to adapt. And adaptation is the greatest strength of all." The Perseverance hummed around them, its systems pulsing with energy that defied understanding but felt somehow right. It had started as the galaxy's weakest ship and become its greatest nightmare, not through strength or power, but through the very imperfection the Commonwealth had despised. And in doing so, it had taught the galaxy that sometimes the greatest victories come not from being the strongest, but from being strong enough to embrace your weaknesses and turn them into something wonderful and new.